Hello and welcome to the second part of today's video on the topic of never aberrate. It still is Friday the 8th of July 2016. It is currently 1425 hours. I wrote me down a checklist on things from the first video that I didn't quite touch on or want to elaborate on. I'm going to start with the easiest of them. I did use the two different words of subhuman and inhuman, and I said how they are different levels, but some idiots out there might pretend to be so stupid not to figure which is which. So there's three terms here, three, it's not that many, three. Human / humane, that is as it ought to be. That is a range really. Then touching that range is a range again that is narrower, but even it is a range, namely subhuman / subhumane. Then beneath that you have a chasm deep gap, and at the rock bottom of that gap you have inhuman / inhumane, just so that you understand the terminology used. Another little thing that I want to point out, this thing here, although of course it is designed to be that way because of the Superman logo, and it uses the Superman logo to associate it with Alleskönner, this is an A which is locked in. Now you could interpret that A to stand for a whole lot of things. For instance, you could interpret this symbol here as numquam aberrabimus. The A standing for aberrabimus, but it has nowhere to go. It is not possible to aberrate. Numquam aberrabimus. Okay? I like the A in general. A in my life has had a large importance. I always lived at places with an A. I grew up in a place called Altmannsdorf with an A. I currently live and have been for almost 15 years now, I think, living in a place called Atzgersdorf with an A. The coat of arms of Atzgersdorf actually is an A. As Prime Minister of Thailand, I will have a private apartment in Harmoniestraße in Vienna, which is in Alser Vorstadt, I think it's called, with an A. All throughout my school, I always was in the A grade in school, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of A's, and this is yet another A. It is not my superhero logo. No, it is a nice symbol that people are free to use for numquam aberrabimus. Okay, that's all it is. And me putting it on is a wee bit of counter ridicule included. And the wonderful thing about my ridicule is that, as with all things, it is true. That makes the ridicule strike home. And that's what I like about it. So that much about this here. Check. Here's the topic. I did mention the Tooth Anger app, and what I said was app. To be precise, it was more like a very simple routine, really. The Tooth Anger, or Tooth Hatred, as we now know, was really just a particular individual little routine. It was not a grown app as such. There was all kinds of things attached to the teeth, though, as a functionality, and especially for proxy control purposes. I have explained in the past what proxy control is. Your teeth were utilized. Touching with your tongue towards sides of your teeth, particular teeth and so on, was a nice way to utilize it as a bit of a proxy control in the sense of a remote control, okay, and so on and so forth. I deleted the entire functionality suite that was attached at anything to my teeth. On an outside little side remark here, I do want to point out that I cannot rule out that I was in my life also, when it comes to this, lucky insofar as that I had all 4 wisdom teeth cause severe problems and splinter my more frontal molars, and really for years and years and years give me trouble. Why was that fortunate? Because it might have actually messed with the functionality of all the things associated with the teeth. Namely, messed in such a way that parts of my nervous system noted it and just observed what was going on there, and so on and so forth. I do want to point this out. This might not have been the case, that it was a positive side effect, but I cannot rule out that it actually was a positive side effect. So even though now I have to live with the consequences of my wisdom teeth, even though they're all removed by now. As I said, I got a few teeth pulled recently, and even that is late consequences to some parts of what the wisdom teeth did. At least there's nice things concerned too. So that about a tooth hanger app, and I do want to point out that I sort of forgot to mention that because I assumed it would be obvious. The simple reason why I all brought up the topic of that tooth anger or tooth hatred routine is so that you people out there, pretty please turn it off. Okay? It works that way that your face can be affected and you don't even realize. I mean, actually you do realize, but you might be so accustomed to you being a fanatical hater that you don't see anything wrong with that, whereas it's actually the fucking routine that's on. And you sit there with your clenched teeth. So not just do I kindly ask you to not clench your teeth, because it's not that easy, because you are driven to clenching your teeth, but to once more relax, think inward, lean, let your how to put that? Let your consciousness fall back, like backwards into a swimming pool or something, right? Or like floating on your back in a swimming pool, comfy, not dangerous or anything. Just really relax and know inwardly, actively know and decide that you turn off all routines at all associated with your teeth and your jaw. And there beyond, and specifically think of the tooth hatred routine to be turned off. Universally for all phases. Again, it is something that you just have one set of teeth, and it makes necessary that the actual jaw needs to be clenched and not a virtual body description jaw of a face. So it's your actual jaw. Unclench it, relax, turn the shit off, and once you succeed and find out, hey, something is a little different, maybe you can succeed to just delete the fucking shit. Think inwards deeply, give this time, think of deleting it. Don't think, how do I do that? Just think of deleting it, know to delete it. Maybe you get to delete it. Because really, it's, I mean, I don't at all claim that I'm able to think myself into the crazy mind of religious haters and things like that. But I completely fail to envision why somebody would want that to be active. Now, unfortunately, as mere drones are all that are required, chances are very high that the people, at least back when I had noticeably drones sick to still connected directly to the head back in those days, but even afterwards I had some that seemed full of hatred attached to the proxy devices and shoving shit into the field. With those, it most probably is absolute unsuspecting nobodies out there who are just on hate drone mode, as there are all manners of drones out there, as there are translated drones and whatnot. We'll get to the translated drones. So I know that this video probably does not reach the people who really shove the hatred my way, but even if you think you're a very important fucker in Fexmoney and no one would have dared to give you that app, you might be surprised what apps people dare to give you. Because as I explained before, for 80 fucking years in some select parts, countries and territories, people have been mind-fucking one another, namely all the interest groups one another, not just the mere populace of the mere mortal nobody cattle people. Okay? So even if you think you don't have it or something, try it. That's why I brought it up in the first place. What else is there? Here's something. Ha ha, he said tantamount when he meant paramount. See how I know that it's paramount and not tantamount? I want to explain you that thing. That thing is a very interesting case of an intermingling of effects of various sabotaging routines placed. Some of them are universally found in the populace, not just specifically for me. What they try to do, this has to do with their insisting on force verbalization. What is force verbalization? Typically, one does not think verbally. One thinks without verbalizing things. But in order to enable the extracting of each and everything, they are forced, coerced, to operate in a mode that everything is constantly force verbalized. Every thought is force verbalized. And to make that at all efficient, they have established, if you so will, rules for that, namely that ideally no word is to have more than one precise meaning. That work preemptively, if you want, or in a preventive way against allegoric using of words, against symbolisms, against mere synonyms sometimes, that can shoot down, for instance, your foreign language skills, especially if it's more than two, because with two you have a one-to-one possibility, but especially if you have a third language along. I explained how I learned beginning Japanese, I explained how I had some Italian down and so on, and all of this is pretty botched in my head because they have a strict lookup table where there's just one entry, and that goes one entry only. And the opposite of that entry is not the third language, but it's the other entry of that first language, right? And paramount, in my mind, in my vocabulary, is, believe it or not, as I'm a movie buff, primarily down as a movie studio, Paramount Pictures, okay? Which is why the word paramount is basically sat on, and some other word in the vicinity is dragged along, and that is tantamount. Even though I know that tantamount means of the same extent and not what paramount means, and I did mean paramount. I just noted that when I was watching the video, okay? But these routines that are placed on people everywhere, not just to be able to constantly, see, because there are people who are not good with subtleties and double entendres and whatnot. There are fixed money people who say, well, all right, but what quite does he mean when he thinks of me as an allegoric dick? What does that mean precisely? Please don't use such allegories. I don't understand them. I want to know precisely what he thinks. Right? So they don't like symbolisms, allegories, things like that. Because really, when you force verbalize, your force verbalization can't keep up the pace. If you had to elaborately explain the fucking symbolism that people don't get about it, the fucking irony that people don't get about it, or whatnot. So they prevent and try to forbid all of this and take everything idiotized ultra literally, also for translation purposes, where they have translator drones who have a strict one-to-one. Its results. If you actually use translator drones, they're not using professors for foreign languages. They're using everyday Joes. Okay, and their vocabulary is not reliable in the first place. And especially if forced into a strict one-entry-only lookup table system, oftentimes gets you odd results. Add to that the fact that one and the same word is translated differently by different individuals, and the definition of one and the same word, such as paramount, for instance, can be differently down in individual people's heads than with the next guy. Okay? But that is because Fix Mundi out there, I mean, I know I'm talking to you, Fix Mundi, so you know what you're doing, but there are some interest groups out there who don't understand what is going on, and so I try to explain the effects of this. the constant forced verbalization of everything contributes to, for instance, little banal occurrences like me accidentally saying Tantamount rather than Paramount. But what you must understand is that this idiotized taking everything ultra literal has a devastating effect on religious people and scripture. The reason why people take scripture so, as I mentioned in the first video, every single letter in there literally, is because they are forced to think in that way. Because this forced verbalization also is constantly on, not because the everyday nobodies out there would constantly get stuff extracted out of their heads, but they are getting, most of the time or way more frequently, constantly getting precisely phrased and those content shoved into their head, namely verbalized but into illegally connected their phases, or be it egos, thinking field, not speech field, or rather hearing field, so to speak, if it comes from the outside. But they have pre-scripted, precisely phrased, where they insist on exactly this phrasing, like it were scripture, even though it might be political or business or else how indoctrination merely, but where they insist on it arriving exactly in that way they put it down onto paper, exactly as they scripted it. And for that, they have all the people out there in constant idiotic literally mode. And if such people sit their asses down and read religious texts, the result is what you get and what you can observe over these last few decades. And you get ultra idiots like those that in America just built the Ark. And you get results like, if it's not the Bible you read, but the Quran you read, if you read the Quran on idiotized literal mode, you get the results in the world that you get. Not even because anyone, not that there wouldn't be people who additionally pour gasoline into the fire, but that effect alone causes all of that. And the interesting thing is, I am sure, especially amongst especially the clergy, they must wonder what's going on. You know, they must go, oh, look at them, they're all lurching all by themselves, I don't have to do anything, I don't even have to preach, they all come, they flock to me, no, to the Lord, forgive me, they all flock to the Lord by themselves and lurching, oh, I don't even have to do anything, awesome, oh, this is the age of God. No. It is not. It is the age of forced verbalization, ultra idiotic forced verbalization. One meaning only, nothing other than literal meaning. One entry only, lookup tables. And that is the effect that you harvest. And by keeping that turned on in the populace, you will continue to harvest that. Do you understand how that is devastating to all of humanity? Do you even begin to fathom that? And let's go away from religion. One of the reasons why science is so severely fucked up is because the only people who read there are three types of people who read specific texts at a depth nobody else reads them. One is editors. The other, and to a certain extent, academical background people who have to interpret literature or whatnot, but let's forget about them. Editors, clergy, or not necessarily clergy even, but any people who read religious texts with a religious impetus, longing for feedback or whatever, and scientists reading scientific papers. The very fact, typically, for the last 80 years not, or at least for the last 40, 50, luckily, and not longer than that, but typically when you were a scientist sitting your ass down to read somebody's new postulated theory, you would criticize automatically, not in a negative way, in a constructive way, every single fucking letter that stood there. Instead, you get a result that is practically the fucking obvious thereof, the fucking opposite thereof. Do you understand that? do you at all begin to understand? Do you understand why more and more fields of science are behaving in dogmatic fashion, or in what their minds muster as the only way out, namely allowing a plethora of completely contradictory theories to coexist at the same time, which is what you have in a lot of fields of physics. That forced verbalization shit is devastating to everything. Everything. Get that into your heads. So that explained. There was a case in the first video where I mixed up two possible ways of putting a sentence. I wanted to say, you have no idea how angry I am, and what I said was, you have no idea how angry you are, because the alternative would have been how angry you make me, and I am, and it became you are. So I did not mean to say that you have no idea how angry you are. I guess you have an idea how angry you are. What I meant to say was, you out there, you Fex Mundi filth, have no idea of how angry I am, and you make me. Now, the point to understand, the context that I mentioned it in, was actually the hatred. See, when it comes to the diversity of human minds, that I have elaborated in one of my more recent videos, what, if it takes a horrendous form, we call I assume the we now, we call the Jedediah defect. Hatred and anger do not work against one another, but hatred is anger not correctly managed, or rather anger is the successful management of hatred, whereas if something in your brain is missing, to put it very simply, then, namely in a Jedediah defect degree, then you cannot ever get beyond hatred. You cannot even develop anger. Now, of course, it's not 100% possible or not possible. It comes in degrees, and it pertains to whatever topic it is and how important that is to you, and so on and so forth. But what I mean to say is, I get a lot of haters my way. And a lot of that hate is because of the tooth hate routine. But even that turned off, I'm sure you people out there, you Fex Mundi filth, especially amongst the lurchies, but even amongst you uppity people who think you're something better than the rest of the populace, even amongst you, you must have a lot of hatred in your head. And the more hatred you have, the more you are barred from developing anger. I am capable of a level and degree of anger that you people, and I wrote down a few nice words here, that to you people is unknowable, inconceivable, unimaginable, simply utterly beyond you to grasp. You cannot even begin to fathom the degree of my anger. Now, the other way around, I can't do that about your hatred. The only difference is that your hatred matters not. My anger does. And here we are reaching a point where that simply puts me at what you might call a situational advantage. Or, if that sounds a little too abstract, situational advantage, I am right. That's what it means. Or in more precise words, you are wrong. That's what it means. Back to the road. That road I mentioned, it's not that there's 38 different roads. It's not that you have any legitimate right to say, yeah, but what if I want to take this road? There ain't no fucking road. One road exists. One. that of sanity. It is the only road around. There never was another, there never will be another. One road, sanity. As this is about the end of mankind, let's get this to a more species whole level, okay? Just so that you understand what I'm talking about. I'm trying to aid you understand what I'm talking about here. When it comes to herds of animals, as Alleskönner, as prime protector of mankind, I am, if you will, that which guarantees the herd to stay on that road. Or if you want to put it in different terms, I am, so to speak, the pathfinder of the herd. Just that I don't have to find the path. It's more a path keeper. It's more keeping a set course, so to speak. Like on a ship, right? But then, if you like Pathfinder better, use Pathfinder. I like the word Pathfinder better. So I use Pathfinder. Pathfinder and keeper. Okay? That is what prime protector of mankind is. Now you might say, yeah, but only until you're dead. And when you're dead, then we, the Lurgies, will be the Pathfinders. No. It's not how it works. See, in somewhat stilted words, because I understand some of you religious crazies like stilted words, so in somewhat stilted words, I actually wrote this down here. I hope I get the voice right. Sorry. Oh, I missed something. Very important. Very important. My anger, that situational advantage and so on, what that really means for practical purposes for you is that I represent anger of a magnitude that is completely beyond you, that in your world view, in this non-reality that you choose to dwell in, means super, and then you choose the rest of the word. Not Superman, but as in supernatural, superior, godlike. I am, compared to the degree of anger that you can muster, my anger is godlike. In your worldview, I am just going for a scientifically ultra-precise analogy here. That's all I'm doing. In your worldview, for you, as far as you're concerned, for all practical purposes, I am the wrath of God. And as an atheist, I find it very funny and see a bit of irony in there, that an atheist would be the wrath of God. But as I represent wrath of all mankind of a degree that you cannot even begin to fathom, to you, I am the wrath of God. So the next time you feel compelled to fuck around with the description and the definition and the declaration there of my proxy devices, my proxy field, and declaring me as whatever shit, how about you try the honest thing and declare me as the wrath of God? And any fucking lurchy who connects to my proxy devices will get scared off a little for the rest of his fucking life. Because I am the wrath of God in your crazy mindset. Of course there is no God. But for you who say there is, I am the wrath of God. I want you to understand that. Because it is true. And if you deny that truth, you have stumbled across one of the many cracks in your ill logic. It's not a crack that I placed there. It's just that you finally stumbled across one of them. Ill logic is always loose at the seams. Because it's ill logic. Such as yours. Just so you know. Back to the road. The stilted sentence. Talking about Pathfinders and how you think you can be the new Pathfinders when you're somewhere in the wilderness nothingness. Woe be to ye peoples who let priests be thy Pathfinders. Yeah. I'll say this again. Woe be to ye peoples who let priests be thy pathfinders. And not to, or to make sure not to have a bunch of crazy pseudoscientists out there embark on an all-new quest to, apparently deep in him is the pathfinder gene of proto-humans, so now we must go hunt for the pathfinder gene. And put it into priests or something. See, that would be the reason why you go trying to find the pathfinder, not that there is such a fucking thing, but the pathfinder gene. It is just diversity of the human nervous system. That is not a gene. You cannot make priests pathfinders. Because, as I said, pathfinders are on that path already. And priests are off that path already. Okay? Priests are in the ultra thickets. Way, way, way off from the road. That is where you dwell. You are not pathfinders. You cannot be pathfinders. You shy away from even the grass next to the road. You are not pathfinder material. And if they ever genetically engineered one of you to be, he would immediately cease to be priest material. That is the nature of mankind. See, the thing about this, when I said how it's aberabimus contained so that it never aberrates, what this really means and represents is that it cannot. It's not that it's an idealistic goal that is striven for, never aberrate. No, this brain cannot biologically, physically, anyhow, aberrate. And people out there like that cannot do that either. It is impossible. And if you say, well, then we manipulate you, and then, no, you can only, let me get a tone right. Oh, child, you can only manipulate something that is there, not something that is not there. There is nothing in here that you could manipulate to such a behavior that I would aberrate. Period. That's all there is to it. Now, as the prime protector of mankind, I am not merely the pathfinder, because the pathfinder's job is merely to stay on the path and keep on the path. I am also the warrior, because the warrior's job is, contrary to popular belief, the warden of the herd. The warden. That is the warrior's job. That I stay and remain on the path is because I'm a pathfinder. That I and my brother's keeper and actually do see him even though he walks in the grass is because as the warden, as the warrior, I do keep an eye on what there is to be protected. That is the nature of protector of mankind. So some of you priests might think, awesome, well if we can't be pathfinders, we're going to be the warriors. No, you cannot be the warriors. And there's reasons for that, you see, because looking for anything that at all, remotely, at a long stretch, lends itself to be a sad excuse, the saddest ever, for an analogy, as the functions in a herd, that a priest might represent. The only thing I came up with, and I must admit I gave this about 1 minute 40 seconds consideration only on my way to the tobacconist that just down the street. So I'm not claiming that I thought this perfectly through to the end with a lot of peace of mind on my hands and a lot of time invested, but for the 1 minute 40, I did arrive there like 40 seconds into it, and from nothing that would drive me away from that realization again the remaining minutes. So I'm pretty sure that I have this down right, even after 1 minute 40 seconds. Namely, the only role that might be suitable for priests is color of the herd. That is C-U-L-L-E-R, to cull the herd. In herds, sometimes it is necessary to cull the herd. In fact, in a lot of old civilizations, as I probably needn't tell you, sacrificial offerings were part of the regular ongoings, and that was, to a certain extent, culling the herd. In other old civilizations, the sacrificial offerings were really just opportunistically made use of for religious purposes, but were actually carried out primarily as judgment, punishment, let's call it that way. Not to give you the wrong idea that you're judges, but you might also be executioners, so to speak. You are the colors of the herd, if anything. And to once more come touch back on the warriors, which you are not, if some of you think, no, let's first remain with the culling of the herd. See, as Prime Protector of mankind, I assure you, this herd, 7 billion people on this planet, is not anywhere near the point where it is in need of culling. Matter of fact, I would go as far as to say that the very nature of a herd has advanced to such a degree that we don't need culling like we used to. We as an animal are, in that respect, and that is one of the respects where, contrary to the other respects where there still is a strong analogy, this is only a very loose analogy because we've developed so far. We are the masters over our environs, which is not true for most of the other species out there. We can make sure that we don't ever wind up in the necessity to cull our herds. And if some of you now, in your idiocy, and your insanity, and your hatred, and whatnot, go, well, I want to be the color of herds, yes, but I won't be the color of my herd, I will be the color of another herd, and start your holy wars and shit. No. Because wars are not holy. And, next tilted line, woe be to ye peoples who let priests be thy warriors. And that second time, woe be to ye peoples who let priests be thy warriors. So, my dear clergy of whatever fucking religion or cult or sect or whatever out there, including UFO people and whatever the fuck, time traveling, rebirth from Sirius, or whatnot, I don't care. The truth is, mankind, and I say this as Prime Protector of mankind, is not in need of colors at all. Which really means that you don't have something for which there exists a formidable, magnificently ultra-precise German word, namely Daseinsberechtigung. Clergy has no Daseinsberechtigung in a liberated world. However, as it is humanity and humane behavior, I have, in my documents, suggested the RCC, not suggested, I have actually explained it to them, how they will be allowed to die out. We're not going to put you down. We're going to send you all to Sardinia and there you die out. And there'll be other Sardinias all over the fucking world. Basically, there most probably needn't even be, because people will just shy away from you. They will no longer flock you, they will unflock. Flock to you, they will flock away from you. They will go, ah! That's what will happen. And you will be very alone there, somewhere, miles away from the road, in the thicket. Unless you develop issues over you not having a Daseinsberechtigung, you will be allowed to peacefully die out. Some of you might actually come into the understanding of all of what I've just explained. Because some, very few, but some of you do have at least the intellectual capacity to think this through. They might still, they might develop a practical understanding of the circumstances and the situation, even though they might not grasp it. To the extent that in everyday life, it does suffice to know that electricity comes out of the socket. That it doesn't really manifest magically in the socket, that's another story, but it does help a lot if you know already that it comes out of the socket. Okay, that does help. And if you, to such a working functional degree only, develop the ability to realize that colors of the herd are not required anymore in a liberated mankind, and I will liberate mankind, then you will understand why I don't like you much. This herd needs no culling, and you have, other than color, no other function in the herd. Because religions are aberrations. Have that sink in. And then sick the next fucking grotesque, ridiculing little shit think tank of your lurchy sex ed me. You fucking useless pieces of shit.